Welcome back. My name is Mel, this is Create & Company, and we're here to keep going with the International Forever Online Book Club, going on the book of The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. We're almost done, everyone. And my name is Mel. I'm a coach for creatives to get back into their flow, back into their confidence, and back into consistent action on their creative projects. If you're curious about how to work with me, you can check out that Dropbox right below this video. Right now, let's get back into the book. Today's section is from page 369 until 384. The first mini chapter is called Let It Be. And this chapter is about how to give and receive feedback on creative works of art. As somebody who guides creatives in their creative projects and also who connects creatives in the creative accountability groups and the creative support groups, the creative action groups, I am very, very happy that he included a section on how to best communicate, how to best support other creatives, and how to receive that support ourselves. So he starts by saying, first, do no harm. And he says this is the Hippocratic Oath, and that's an oath taken by doctors, if you don't know that, to do no harm. And he says that the same applies to creativity. Because if asked to participate in a fellow creator's project, proceed delicately, he says. Proceed delicately. He says this because in its rough form, you know, those beginning drafts, the very beginnings of a project, he says, an early iteration of a work may hold an extraordinary magic. Above all, this is to be protected. When working alongside others, keep the oath front of mind. So he says that there is a magic to that first draft. There is a magic to the diamond in the rough. And so this is a time to be very careful with how we give feedback. And he says that actually a recognition of the strengths of a project, a simple recognition of the strengths of a project might be enough to move that project forward. So he says that highlighting what's great about a project at the beginning may give it the necessary momentum. And he says at the very end, sometimes the most valuable touch a collaborator can have is no touch at all. He's talking about how it's a universal precept to do no harm. So if anyone's been asking you for your creative input, notice how you can be as soft, caring as possible. And what I meant about how to receive the feedback, that's more in this next mini chapter called cooperation. So remember how we talked about the prism of self earlier? He said that when a few prisms come together, a new idea or a new iteration can be formed. Like think of it as putting a red filter with a blue filter and then you get purple. So whether the perspectives contrast or complement each other, they combine to create a new vision. Let's call this cooperation. Like awareness, cooperation is a practice. The more skillfully we participate in the process, the more comfortable it becomes. He compares it to jazz. Has anyone here ever heard live jazz? I have, and he talks about it in terms of reacting intuitively in the moment in cooperation with the other sounds of the band. You can lead the play or allow yourself to be led, enjoying the surprise of the unexpected. I have been a freestyle dancer, and at times when I enter a cipher or when I play tag per se with other dancers where you pass off the beat, you pass off the dance, there is this surprise of the unexpected. Each time we cooperate, he says, we're exposed to different ways of working and problem solving, which can inform our creative process going forward. What I took from this is that there is no lose here. Like no matter what gets created in that moment, you're refining your muscle in terms of the problem solving, the reacting on your feet, the process. And I find that when I am thinking on the spot of what dance move to share in a cipher, for example, it's really nice to be in cooperation because of what is unexpected and it's out of your hands. He had a really nice metaphor. He said he thinks of cooperation not as competition, because he warns that, like he has in the before in the book, to not see it as competition. He says it's like if you're helping someone boost them to get over a wall, because you all want to see over the wall, so there's no power struggle in this act. You are simply finding the best route to a new perspective. So all together, you get to a different view that maybe none of you would have been able to do on your own in that case. It is a disservice to the project to weigh our contribution to it. So here he reminds us, don't let the ego get in the way. It's not about how big of a portion to the final project you give. It's that the project ends up being the best it can possibly be. Remember, we're serving the art over ourselves. The best results are found when we are impartial and detached from our own strategies. We all benefit when the best idea is chosen, regardless of it's ours or not. Cool. On page 373, he talks about how if one person has idea A and one person has idea B, it's not about A winning or B winning. He says, why don't you look for idea C that you can both be happy with? Make a mutual recognition of the best solution possible. Incorporate elements of A and B. Okay. Sometimes he says there's a leader and you don't all have to have a democracy. He says sometimes there's somebody that everybody knows they're following or contributing to, and that's okay. He said that a polarity between members is very beneficial sometimes. In bands and collectives and collaborations, a degree of polarity between members was part of the formula for greatness. The magic comes from a dynamic tension between different points of view, creating works more distinctive than a lone voice would. So he says to not shy away from those contrasts or the polarity within a group. So in that sense, he said, don't try to see eye to eye all the time with your collaborators, because then you're probably bringing the same point of view and you want that contrast. Healthy tension in a collaboration is not uncommon. Friction allows the fire to come. I put a sticky on that. I thought it was really cool to hear it said that way. Friction allows the fire to come. He later talks about communication and how it's very important to skillful cooperation. And his advice is to be very detailed when you're giving feedback. If anyone here knows about nonviolent communication, I use that in my communication and with my clients and in creative groups. There as well, they talk about being super specific with your feedback. For example, he says that instead of saying, I don't like the colors, you can say, I think the colors in these two areas don't interact well together. So now you're giving more of a reasoning as to what you think there is not right. And often we want to give the solution right away. Here he says in communication to better take a silence and let the creative themselves that you're giving the feedback to come up with their solution, because often it can be better than what you've even imagined. And then he says that when you're receiving feedback, try to get your ego out of the way, because it can perceive assistance as interference, and also consider that language is an imperfect tool, and so it might not be very clear at first what that collaborator is trying to tell you. And he said that it's important to mirror back and tell them what you think you heard, because that will help you clarify between the two of you if you are on the same page of the communication. Repeat back the information. When sharing observations, specificity creates space. It dissipates the level of emotional charge and enables us to work together in the service of the peace. Okay, the last mini chapter here is called The Sincerity Dilemma. This mini chapter reminds me of the mini chapter about how you can take the pressure off of trying to save the world with your art. He says if that happens, it's a byproduct. Same here. When you try too hard to be sincere, he says it comes off as saccharine or fake or empty or dull. So he says instead, let yourself be who you're really being, and in all that imperfection, you're being sincere. He says, we like to think of ourselves as consistent, rational beings, possessing certain attributes and not others. Yet a person who is completely consistent, who possesses no contradictions, comes across as less real, wooden, plastic. The most truthful and irrational aspects of ourselves are often hidden, and our access to them lies through the creation of art. Okay, slow down and take this in. What he's saying here, from what I understood, is the sincerity you think you're going to give them is going to be fake because you might think you're one way and you're so much more multifaceted. And by creating the art, you will discover more who you really are through the creation of the art. Each work tells us who we are, often in ways the audience understands before we do. Talk about surrender. You're letting them get to know you before you possibly caught whim of what's going on. Creativity is an exploratory process to find the concealed material within. We won't always discover it. If we do, it may not make sense. A seed could draw us because it contains something we don't understand. And this vague attraction will be as close to knowing as we ever get. Some aspects of the self, this was really key, some aspects of the self don't like to be approached head on. They prefer to arrive indirectly, in their own way, as sudden glimpses, caught in accidental moments, like sunshine glinting off the surface of a wave. And all art is poetry. Art goes deeper than thought, deeper than the stories about yourself. It breaks through inner walls and accesses what's behind. If we get out of the way and let the art do its work, it may yield the sincerity we seek. And sincerity may look nothing like we expected. That was a refreshing mini chapter. What did you think about it? Comment below. What are you going to apply? What do you have questions about? How's your creative project going? What books do you want me to do in the future? Please keep the communication going no matter when you watch this. Remember, this is the Forever International Online Book Club. And you know where to find me. Dropbox below or createandcompany@gmail.com. Bye.